Welcome back to the West Virginia Game Developers Expo in coordination with the West Virginia Cybersecurity Expo. I am Patrick Smith, and we are here to do our second keynote of the day with Christian Allen. Before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors, Remake West Virginia, who is an Epic Games Mega Award winner, a recipient, and I want to thank Mount West Community Technical College. And so with that, I want to introduce you all to Christian Allen, who works at Epic Games. He's an evangelist for them. He's going to talk about how Unreal is used in many, many more facets of the professional workforce workspace than just game development. I'll go ahead and share your stuff here, Christian, and let you go ahead and take it over.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me today, and welcome everybody that's viewing live and going to be viewing not live later. I want to give a big shout out to the hosts and the sponsors of this event, and excited to be here talking to you today. So I know some of the other speakers are really focusing a lot on game development and virtual production in TV and film. But what I'd like to do today is kind of just give an overview of the opportunities in 3D tech, specifically game technology and Unreal Engine in specifically. When the folks talk to me about giving this presentation, a lot of the conversation is around with our changing times and all of the changes in our world. A lot of students and indie game developers that are in game development right now are thinking about different opportunities and maybe questioning, the games industry is doing really well, but it's hyper competitive. A lot of people want to get into it. And can the skill set that I learned using technology like Unreal and including others like Unity and Godot, Blender, Maxmaya, all those various different things, can that skill set translate into other fields? And basically what I'm here to do today is say yes, those things do translate into the real world and into other spheres that you can take that skill set that you learn in building games, whether it be through a college program or yourself working with some of the various different local clubs and such like that, to expand and work in other industries. So as you may have been able to tell already, I'm not doing a fully canned presentation. I figured if we're demonstrating this live, I should just be able to kind of run through it and talk. Luckily, we have about 90 minutes for the presentation itself, and then at least another half hour of Q&A. So I wanted to keep things kind of free flowing and run it live rather than just something that you could just watch in a video. So I'm just going to start running through it. First, I want to talk a little bit about myself and Epic Games. So I am Christian Allen. I am the evangelist for North America, or one of the evangelists for North America at Epic Game. We actually have an evangelist team around the world focused on different regions, North America, LATAM, Europe, Southeast Asia. So we have folks like myself that have a variety of different backgrounds. While my primary focus is games, there are evangelists that work in the other verticals as well as technical account managers. But I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I am a game designer. I started my career off making mods in the late 90s, spun that into a job at Red Storm Entertainment, working for Ubisoft, worked my way up to creative director there, focusing on the Ghost Recon franchise on the Xbox. Moved over to Bungie, where I spent a couple years working on Halo Reach as design lead there. Then I was at Warner Brothers, WB Games, out of Seattle, which included studios like Surreal, Monolith, Snowblind, and others. My primary focus when I came on was on Mad Max. I also worked on Lord of the Rings franchise, as well as doing some pitch work on DC projects. After that, I went independent in 2012, started my own studio, did the whole crowdfunding thing, all that fun stuff. And that's when I actually switched over to Unreal, started on Unreal 3. Before that, had been all proprietary technology. And we shipped one title in Unreal 3 on PC and Xbox, and two additional experimental titles on PC and VR in Unreal 4. About 3 years ago, I joined Epic Games as an evangelist, and really my focus specifically is on EULA game developers, so indie and AA game developers in Canada and the United States, and helping them move forward, develop games, and ship games. Because our business model is royalty based, I'm here to support developers, and I encourage you, if you're an indie game developer or a small game developer or a AAA developer that just doesn't have contact at Epic, feel free to reach out. You can find me on Twitter at Cyrilin. LinkedIn is a great way to contact with me, especially for folks asking for professional advice and things like that. You can just search LinkedIn. I'm Christian Allen Designer. Other social media I don't do Instagram. Facebook I keep relatively private. So Twitter and LinkedIn are the best ways to reach out to me. You can drop me a DM on Twitter or send me a contact on LinkedIn. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about Unreal Engine in games. Like I said, so a lot of the other speakers are going to be focusing on games and TV and movies, so I'm not going to be hyper focused on that today, but I do want to give you an overview. Unreal Engine was first created in 1998 for the game Unreal, believe it or not. That's when Epic Games created Unreal for their own internal development. Since then, it's expanded out. Its first primary focus was AAA games. For example, here, Gears of War. And it was primarily focused on licensing the engine out to other AAA game development studios. So it was a very kind of closed doors. The bigger companies were able to license it and use it. But as we moved forward into kind of today's world of the expansion of things like Fortnite, the Unreal Engine is expanded, both from the accessibility standpoint of just being able to download the engine and use it from a cost standpoint, and also in the broadness of what kind of games it supports. So in supporting a phenomenon like Fortnite, which has been expanded across console, PC, mobile, with connections, cross-platform, all of those various different things. We had to both adapt the engine, both for our consumers, our customers, which are our licensees, and ourselves. And that's one of the important things about Unreal Engine is it is battle tested with applications like Fortnite and some of the others that I'm going to talk about today. So the Unreal Engine and Fortnite in general, it has broad adoption, and again, just reinforcing the fact that Fortnite right now, 350 million players, 12.3 million peak concurrent users across multiple platforms, PC, console, mobile, and we continue to see that run strong. And of course, the back end and all the work and optimization and performance to be able to play an application like that on something like Android or Switch or Xbox and PC all simultaneously. All of that work and that performance and optimization gets rolled back into the Unreal Engine and put out to the developers available to them. So the same tools that are used for Epic to create something like Fortnite are the same tools that are available to anybody that can has an internet connection and the hardware to run the engine. Obviously, Fortnite's also expanded out to things like real-time events. That's something in the current climate, I guess you would say, of COVID that people are really interested in. This is just an example. The Travis Scott Fortnite concerts had 27 million unique users on one of the shows, 45 million views across 5 shows, and then 2.5 million concurrent Twitch and YouTube views. It also helped obviously raise the approach of the single out to hit #1 on Apple, Spotify, Twitter, things like that. And it was the largest streaming debut of the year. So that really shows the power and the platform of the transition from traditional games media into, what we would call traditional games media into a broader scope of things like live events, music concerts, and things like that. And I think we're going to see more exciting experimentation in that space as well. So in addition to things like Fortnite, Unreal Engine's being used in the game space all across the board. Major companies like Microsoft and various other partners utilize it all the way from solo developers working on a game up to major AAA teams on a variety of different platforms. And I'm going really, really fast, so I might slow this down a little bit because I just realized I'm only 10 minutes in. So in addition, the Epic has an ecosystem that we are continually working on creating and expanding for developers and creators. Again, focusing on the game space, we have the Unreal Engine. We have launched the Epic Game Store, which is a platform for developers to launch their own titles with a much reduced storefront cut. The developers selling games on the store, Epic takes a 12% royalty on each of those sales as compared to a much higher industry standard. So we are working on setting up tools like that where developers can promote and control their own destiny in their own games. And we feel very strong about that. Along with that is things like Epic Games Online Services, which is an engine agnostic. Of course, the store is engine agnostic as well. Although Unreal Engine developers do get their engine royalty waived for copies that they sell in the store. Epic Online Service is another example of an engine agnostic tool set that we're creating that we want to promote industry-wide to allow folks to tap into that power, again, of cross-platform, of having single service that players or that developers can use to host the online services that they need, and breaking those walls down between the walled gardens of the storefront, so you're not relying on single storefronts to provide your back-end services. That's something that we feel important, which is why we're providing it as an SDK that's engine agnostic. And can be rolled out by a variety of teams using a variety of different technologies worldwide. In addition, we are expanding our use. This kind of starts rolling into the kind of main topic of my talk today. But we have products and companies like Twinmotion, which creates or helps create and provide architectural demonstrations and building for folks that might not be coming directly from the game space and are more used to a more traditional architectural suite. Twinmotion is a great thing for them to look into. And then Quixel is a service that provides high resolution real-time photogrammetry. I'm not exactly sure how you say that word. High resolution scans for developers and content creators who use that content in their product offerings to their consumers. So as we continue to move down the road and look at different offerings, we want to provide a full scape of content for developers and creators to use. So the main thrust of what I'm talking about, now that I've kind of spun through the huge thing of video games, is going to be beyond games. Now, there have always been a lot of opportunities in more traditional things like simulation and graphics design, things like that, using 3D engines. But as we continue to develop and mature the technology, and more customers are using that technology, providing feedback on usability and different avenues to use that, we are really truly seeing a revolution beyond games. And I think that one of the biggest beneficiaries of that revolution is going to be the developers that are entering the workforce right now. What it means in general is that if you are extremely skilled in a 3D engine, and I'm just going to focus on Unreal because that's who I work for, and that's who got me here today. If you're very skilled in creating, for example, cinematics for video games, you'll be able to translate those tools directly into other industries. So you're no longer reliant on the specific industry if you are have a good technical skill set. Now, that's not taking away from games. Games is my passion. That's what I want to do. It's what I want to continue to do moving forward. But having those career options and knowing that the very specific tool set, whether you're hard surface artist, environment modeler, animator, rigger, blueprint scripter like myself, that's technically my skill set is blueprint scripting. You can take those skill sets that you've learned and you've applied to games and been tested in games and apply those out to all of these different disciplines and verticals that I'm going to talk about. When I say vertical, it's a term we use to describe various different industries. So you may have a production development track, but it may fall into the automotive vertical, fall into the automotive industry or the aeronautics industry. Even though those may be very similar in technical implementation, they're kind of segued off into that. So that's kind of how I've structured the various different opportunities that I'm going to talk about today. And these skill sets are relatively standalone from the types of technologies and supportive in the various different types of technologies. You know, we've seen obviously a huge uptake of things like virtual reality and AR in the industrial space, in the product design space, in the training and simulation space, with products like VR, AR, Magic Leap, HoloLens, Vive, Oculus. And while the consumer uptick for things like games may not have been as big as we wanted to, now we're seeing a lot of companies pivot and apply the skills and learnings that they learned from games to apply it to different verticals like that. And I think you're going to see that as a running theme where games tend to be on the forefront of things, and mainly because games are, from a developer standpoint, are relatively unforgiving. When you're reaching out to a broad audience for a video game, you are assuming that they are running the technology themselves. They're running the application themselves. They don't have a trainer standing next to them saying, this is what you need to do, or this is how you need to implement it. They don't have an IT person waiting in the wings to come in and say, okay, this is how a virtual reality headset works, or this is how a mouse and keyboard works. That you may have seen in more of a traditional learning or training environment. You don't have a lot of that support. So you have to have the skill set as a development studio or an independent developer to adapt to all the various different things that games bring to the table. High resolution graphics, visual fidelity, user experience, flow, all those various different things. And so a person that's used to working in the game environment that switches over to these more focused environments, I think has a very strong leg up over someone who may be more trained in a more traditional classic approach, and they're trying to adapt to the technology rather than someone that's coming from the technology and then learning about and adapting to the industry. And I think that's a huge thing to keep in mind for folks that are considering to start a career in games or look to again to apply that skill set out broadly. So Unreal Engine for creators. When we're talking about games, I talk about a royalty-based business, but when we're talking about using Unreal Engine in more traditional industries and media, it's generally a royalty-free license. If you're creating more traditional media, internal presentations, internal simulations, things for business relationships, those tend to be under the creator's license. You can obviously go and look up. We have an FAQ on the differences between whether you're shipping a B2C product like games or more of a internal or B2B or traditional linear media product. So you can go out and check that out. We do have over 11 million licensees across the world. And again, what that translates to is people are battle testing the products. And, Epic has folks on the ground. I'm going to be talking about a lot of examples with the big content creators, the large producers, and taking their real world knowledge of their verticals on the ground, working with them. What are the pain points for them? What works, what doesn't? And then again, constantly rolling that back into the engine as we've seen Unreal 4 mature through its lifeline. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the future as well moving forward. Those things are all learnings that roll back into that. And you're going to see that across the board as technologies. We saw that with things like Photoshop as it started getting adopted broader as more of as a standard for creating everything from, editing your family photos up to creating, professional level visual graphics. That usability is a key. And, we're constantly getting that feedback and rolling it back in. So it is important to understand that this technology is being adopted right now. It is being used in major projects right now. This isn't something that's like, in 5 years, this is the way. This is today. Everything I'm presenting is real today. But it's something that we don't talk a lot about at the industry because we are so focused on games. We're passionate about games. When I say industry, I say games industry. We're passionate about video games and we love video games and we love to create things for video games. But the message here is that, when it comes to whether you're looking where to relocate or thinking about, planning, keeping an eye out on those other opportunities that you can apply that skill set is extremely important. So like I said, broad adoption in many industries. And I'm going to talk a few of them right now, but this is just kind of a broad slide. You'll notice I don't like super text heavy slides. I've already gotten past all the text heavy slides already. So this is the most text you're going to see from now on. And I've got some fun videos that I'm going to pop into here in a second. But architecture is obviously, your classic AEC, film and TV, which I already talked about, automotive, broadcast, live events, training simulation, manufacturing, and advertising. Really, the only one I'm not going to talk about too much today is manufacturing and advertising. I'm going to kind of touch on them in relation to automotive. But like I said, I'll touch on them, but just not focusing on them heavily. The first one of these, again, is film and television. There's been a lot of press over the adoption specifically of LED screen technology and how that works into virtual production, essentially changing over from using the kind of green screen post model to doing things in real time. And truly the revolution is in real-time virtual production. So that is a combination of things like creating a set, like you see here from The Mandalorian, that actors and directors can really feel via LEDs, via integrated lighting, via doing things real-time versus in post, as well as just the actual workflow, being able to do things in real time and say, not have to wait months and months and months for things to be modeled and rendered. You're actually changing the workflow and changing that virtual production path. And again, I know there's other speakers at this event that are going to really delve into that. So I don't want to let that kind of be my focus, but film and TV are making a huge transition. And we've only seen that accelerated by again, current events. I don't want to harp on COVID too much, but I think we've seen that transition accelerated because that workflow does allow for distributed teams, distributed workflow, people, working from home and things like that. So we're going to see that accelerating. Unreal Engine specifically has been used in lots of different movies and TV shows. Planet of the Apes is one that we've talked about a lot. The Mandalorian is one that has obviously been used as an example quite a bit. But we're going to continue to see that, game engines in general, Unreal Engine among them, I believe are really going to be replacing, traditional CGI development and engines continue to replace those in the future. And that's one. Again, the workflow is designed for a real-time application. That's what games are designed to do, and those game engines use that same technology and that same workflow to allow very quick iteration. One of the key things that anybody who's worked in games, that iteration is king. You make a product, you prototype it, you get people in front of it, and it's a constantly evolving process. A lot of times constantly evolving past when the product is out, as the product starts getting battle tested and people start getting introduced to it. You can have thousands of person hours of testing ahead of time, but once you get 10 million people interacting with your product, that's a whole other realm. And so taking that iterative learning and bringing that to film and TV and traditional media, I think is a huge step forward, and is going to continue to revolutionize that process. So the next step with that, or kind of combination of that, is broadcast and live events. Weather Channel, again, we've used this as an example a lot. And if you've seen, notice the massive uptake in the excitement of weather related production events in the last couple of years. It's actually been pretty exciting to see. Gone are the days of the meteorologist in front of a boring green screen with funny graphics that look like they were made by like a 9-year-old. Now they have interactive sets, interactive live events, and meteorologists and hosts really interacting with that space, and making events to really help communicate important information. I mean, when we're talking about weather and communicating the importance of something like a hurricane or a flood or a tornado or an earthquake, that those can have real life, drastic life affecting consequences. And so it's really exciting for me. I get really excited when I see some of the Weather Channel stuff. But that is expanding out into things like sports. I'm going to show a little trailer right now that's going to, actually, I'll just probably jump right into that. I think that's next. So I'm going to pop that up, and hopefully we'll switch to full screen here. So a quick sizzle reel that we put together for accepting an Emmy that Unreal Engine was awarded, the second Emmy, and cover some of the film and broadcast media. See if that plays on the right screen. All right. Get back over there. So yeah, I think that sums it up quite well. It's funny because normally when I would be giving a presentation like this, at Mount Lake for events like this or Vector, I normally don't use videos in my presentations because I'm in the room with you talking live. In this case, it's just me in a little space on a screen for an hour. So I thought it would best to spice it up with some videos. So the next big change is linear media. I think that's something that people forget to talk about quite often, is traditional linear media utilizing game technology. So when I say linear media, I mean more of traditional animated shows. Unreal Engine's been used in quite a few different shows on places like Nickelodeon, web TV series, different animations and things like that. And it's a relatively natural progression. Again, when I was working in AAA on cinematics for games like Ghost Recon or Advanced Warfighter or Halo Reach, I spent a lot of time specifically on Ghost Recon doing things like directing cutscenes, directing cinematics, going to mocap studios and doing things with green screen and all that fun stuff. And we were always behind the curve from a technology standpoint. We were trying to adapt things that were designed for being optimized real time. And sometimes that was trying to implement full motion video or traditional cinematic capture like we did on Ghost Recon, or whether it was trying to replicate real-time cinematic presentation using game engines, which was the approach on for example, Halo Reach. And so there was a lot of work that way. We were constantly trying to catch up to the movie industry. We were trying to learn techniques and bring those techniques into technology as an industry. And that work over the last couple decades has really paid off. And nowadays, for folks that are looking to create traditional animated media, whether it be in a more of a 3D, a la Toy Story type presentation, or more of a quote unquote old school traditional quote unquote 2D illustrated format, like I'm about to show you today with Ada. This is an example of a short movie that was created. It's a story close to my heart. I'm from Alaska, and it's a story about an Alaskan girl that gets trapped on an island. And it is very much, a traditional presentation of what would be a animated, illustrated movie, but created using an Unreal Engine and created using the same tool set, the same skill set that someone that's created an animated scene in a video game is going to use. So I'll just jump right in. I'm going to show just a teaser for that, and I recommend you go out and check it out. It's by a company called Blue Zoo, and it's a short animated short called Ada. All right. Excuse me. So like I said, the thing that I like about that example as a example of using game technology to create traditional linear cinema is that the average everyday person that looks at that would not assume that was created in a game engine. Most folks that would look at that would be assume that was created with traditional hand animated media. But of course, by utilizing that tool set, that 3D tool set, blueprint scripting, things like that, the developer of that, and it's funny I use the term developer rather than the term animator or director, is able to iterate on that content content much better, to really focus on the content that they want to create. And someone who has, again, that skill set that can bring that technology flow to those storytellers and enable them to really get the story and the visuals that they want to get out. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for folks that are skilled in game development software to help bring that content to life. And there's going to be a huge opportunity for folks to move into that field if they like. So architecture has been a gigantic shift in vertical for game technology and Unreal Engine. Architecture has traditionally used proprietary software for that transition from traditional concept development to 3D presentation to the actual technical software that they need to create things for construction and engineering to do actual construction. But what we're seeing again is a merging of that field, because Unreal Engine and other technologies have the power to run these aspects in real time. You have the capability of things that you didn't have from a presentation or a technical standpoint in the past, where when you're creating the visual presentation to a client or to a customer, you can build those things to the specifications that you will then need to translate that into actual construction information or actual technical documents that you may need down the line. And again, the power of real time to be able to create an architectural construction, place it into a real environment that is powered with things like real-time daylight cycles, so that you can actually move windows around and understand how the lighting is going to affect the placement of various different architectural objects, whether it be the actual architectural design or we're talking about things like interior design. That is huge. It's both huge from a industry standpoint of how you actually design and create these buildings and these spaces, but also from obviously a marketing standpoint, being able to allow the customer to get a good view of what they're actually going to see. There's just a lot of applications in the architecture space. And what we're seeing now with things like Twinmotion and other outreach that Epic Games has done, reaching into that space, is that the architecture industry is extremely excited about the power that this is bringing to them. Again, power of the presentation, but also again the cost savings of being able to have something that's very quick to change and iterate based on customer feedback, and just really customize their product for their consumer. Incredibly powerful and a huge amount of opportunities. It's funny because a lot of the best level designers I worked with in games over the years have been architects. A lot of folks that I worked with in the specifically with games that feature architecture as their primary environments, games like Rainbow Six, for example, as opposed to something like Ghost Recon. There's a lot of folks that came into the games industry because they were trained as classical architects, and then they were able to learn the games technology and apply that. Well, now that those things are coming together, I think you're going to see a lot of crossover back and forth, where now we're seeing folks that are trained in games moving over into architecture because they can bring that real-time lighting skill set, things like that, into the architectural space. Next is automotive and product design. I think automotive is something that folks are really able to easily grok and get why there's such a huge win for the automotive space. Obviously, the games industry has spent a lot of time, with companies like EA and Microsoft, creating games that do a great job of simulating cars and automotive, both from a visual standpoint and a physics standpoint. That's been something that's been ongoing. But what we're seeing now, again, similar to the architecture space, in the automotive space, is that we're seeing the ability to create assets for a pipeline standpoint, early on when they're doing concept design and things like that, using, real materials, visuals that represent real materials in their concepting phase. That can then translate into things like testing and consumer testing, and then can translate right over into advertising materials, using those same assets all the way through the pipeline. And I think that, again, is a huge change where, when you're creating an asset in product design, you are seeing a long lifetime out of that asset, whether it later is used in a real-time TV commercial or a movie cinematic as product placement, or in your human-machine interface that you may be building within that car. And I'll talk a little bit about HMI in a bit. But we partner with different automotive partners. And again, for me, coming from the game space, that's relatively easy to grok. And I think, obviously, if you can make super amazing cars for a video game space that's optimized to run in on consoles and PCs, but having that high-end asset, and again, as we move forward into things like Unreal 5, that barrier is even going to close farther and farther and farther, where this idea of creating different assets for different applications down the road is going to go away. And I think that's a huge win for folks that are skilled in this space. HMI I just touched on. Human-machine interface is, a growing space. To a lot of folks, they just think of it as, they may think of it as, just expanding tablets to stick in various different things. But using real-time technology to both the learnings of UX, the user experience that the games industry and the real-time industry has developed over the years, putting that into cockpit interfaces, for example, in cars moving forward. Our cars are getting smarter and smarter and smarter as we integrate new technologies and give people the power to want to be the most fuel efficient. Things like safety and notifications for maintenance. Again, raising the bar and having a real impact on people's lives when it comes to safety and information and cost savings, to be able to create vehicles that people can utilize for longer periods of time. And of course, that means more efficiency when it comes to the environment, less creating, whether it be fuels, plastics, batteries, things like that. All of that contributes into something that people can get really excited about. And I think HMI is something that we're going to be exploring further. We just announced a partnership with GM. And so there's a lot of opportunities, again, for those game developers that may be really focused on things like UI and UX and how these interfaces, how people use these interfaces, and the learnings of people that have dealt with millions and millions of people going through their menus on Xbox and how they interact with those can be a huge win to the HMI industry. And I think it's something that's going to be growing, and again, more exciting opportunities for game developers moving forward. Simulation and training. I wanted to include this, and it's kind of the most traditional use of game technology. Early on in the 90s, the simulation industry kind of split off from games in that they both used 3D rendering to provide an immersive experience to the user, but with very different goals, obviously. Games tended to focus more on optimized, smooth, and high resolution visuals, whereas simulation focused more on realistic physics and things like large processing large amounts of data, being able to have highly customizable scenarios to again that you wouldn't traditionally have in games. But also, again, simulations oftentimes relied on, didn't implement a lot of those UX learnings from games. And we're seeing that come together. simulation, whether it takes the form of military or safety, transportation, facilities management, medical, simulation is a growing huge field. Healthcare, government, military, emergency simulation, disaster simulation, the things that you can get people in a low cost, high safety environment to get some of the experience that they need to, whether it be, again, first responders, military, or things that, like, say, traffic simulation that can be, incredibly expensive if things go incorrectly and you need to be able to run a lot of simulations on the same technology, the same platforms that they're using, where you can't just say, take the highway grid offline for a day for everybody to do training on it. Things like that. So I think we're going to continue to see, expansions in simulation and training. And the nice thing about it is, or the exciting thing about it from a game developer standpoint, is that, the simulation and training world has learned from the games industry in that an immersive experience is critical. And the more immersed that you can make the trainee or the consumer in that space, whether that be through virtual reality, AR, or just high fidelity visual experiences, the more effective that training is, and the more effective that simulation is. It used to be that the approach was more, as long as the numbers are right and the physics are correct, and it doesn't really matter that everybody knows this is fake anyway. But I think the simulation and training world has learned from the gaming industry, and it's going to continue to want to have that knowledge, again, of high fidelity environments with a very optimized approach. Being able to run on multiple suites of hardware, and being able to deploy those simulations broader to lower end machines, again, lower end PCs, mobile devices, or even utilized in things like game consoles for training and simulation. And I have a nice little sizzle reel of that as well. Again, the big thing there for game developers is, again, that technology that you're learning to create those high fidelity environments in games translate right into that simulation world. And simulation, again, used to mean pretty much transportation and military. And these days, with medical, with facilities. When I say facilities, I think of things like oil rigs. And nuclear facilities, solar facilities, things like that, where you're creating things that, again, will save people's lives and make the world a better place. I think that's exciting, in the healthcare space, to allow surgeons to practice in virtual reality, or the future of using augmented reality to make surgery safer, to make hospitalization safer, to allow people to train in a safer environment. Again, as I hate to keep harping on the COVID space, but one of the exciting things that I saw last year was a dental hygienist virtual reality training simulation that was created by one of our partners. And if you think about dental hygiene training in the COVID world, that's a tricky space to be in, of getting folks to come in and into your college and let be in that environment while people are poking around in your mouth. Probably pretty restricted right now, but folks would be able to go out and use that virtual reality or even desktop and mobile training simulations to be able to utilize their craft, hone their craft, make themselves better doctors and care providers. And I think that's something that people can get really excited about. All right, so I have just a couple more. We're getting kind of up to the hour mark when we'll probably start moving over into Q&A. Live events. Live events is something that have always existed, utilizing CG graphics, whether it be transmitting things on screens, whether it be traditional screens, LED screens, projection, syncing music to things. But the big fundamental change, the example here is a Childish Gambino concert that was put on. And what they wanted to do was really to tie the visual presentation and the space presentation in with the music and the stage performance in a way that they could control live and really not just try to play something visually and then sync it and have it just sync together. Now it is one production, one presentation, and if you combine that even further into AR, where people can be interacting with their screens and their phones in an environment, to have AR that was kind of shown in that Emmy sizzle reel from earlier. There's a lot of excitement there. And that kind of comes together, again, bringing all these industries and all these skill sets together into one, kind of brings it up into this idea of like the cross vertical. And this is an example I'm going to show that kind of brings all of these things together, whether it be, architecture, product design, bringing in together different presentation technologies into this example, which is kind of I'll let it speak for itself, architectural presentation, but brings all of those technologies together into, more of a cross vertical element. So I'll just go ahead and jump right into the video of that. Almost my last video. All right. So that pretty much covers kind of the broad industry approach that I wanted to talk about, and really presenting the variety of things that are available for folks that are skilled in game development technology. I think that last example is one that, it's a challenge to classify, that you have someone created a physical 3D printed environment, combine that with projection and screen technology, multiple different software suites, including Unreal Engine, to provide a unique experience to their consumers. And the thing that the skill set that you as game developers are learning can bring to the folks that are creating experiences like that is that you are skilled in the technology to create the capability for those experiences, right? It's not just someone going, I want to be able to provide a room with a table where I can do all these various different things. It's looking at the technology that's available to them, that you are bringing to them, and the skill set that you are bringing to them, and thinking about how you can visualize and create those different experiences moving forward. This is just a slide showing some of the employers that are looking to take advantage of these technologies. We've got names that you traditionally wouldn't think about when it comes to into games, whether it be Herman Miller, whether it be I guess I was about to say IBM, you probably would put, but when it comes to GM, Ford, McLaren, various different of businesses, and this isn't it isn't a fad, it isn't something new. There is a huge amount of opportunity for folks in all these spaces that can scratch that artistic itch, that can scratch that itch of making the world a better place. And if you want to work on games, and that's your passion, definitely that's what you should do. But if you want to look at a broader space, there's just lots of exciting opportunity available for you in the future. So for us, moving into 2021, the thing I'm not going to talk a lot about today is what I'm sure a lot of you are interested in asking about as we move, kind of wrapping this up. But moving into Unreal Engine 5. For us, that's the next big step. We are, currently working on that. And the big thing to know about Unreal Engine 5, the biggest pushes, for us are again, lowering those barriers of content creation, content reuse across multiple different verticals. Making more powerful and easier to use tool set. We're going to have some exciting announcements, but one of the key things again is we are going to be battle testing those technologies with applications like Fortnite, in applications, across various different verticals with various different partners like you've seen today, so that we have the best experiences for users picking those up. So for folks today, I know there's probably going to be some questions about Unreal 5, and I probably won't be able to answer them at this point. Either because I don't know, or it's not something that we want to put out right now. But I continue to encourage you to help build the maturity of your skill set in 3D technology. Again, whether it be Unreal Engine, whether it be Unity, whether it be Godot, go out and get game engines, explore them, explore multiple different ones. Hopefully you can get a version of different ones and try them out. That's going to, educate you and make you the best suited to be able to tackle all of these different approaches that you may choose to do. So mega grants. I want to just talk about mega grants a little bit before I wrap up and get to questions and answers. So the Epic Mega Grants program is a grant fund, and part of the sponsorship of this event was put on by a mega grant recipient, and big shout out to my friends, especially Corey. I know he's going to be talking about that in his presentation during this conference. So I encourage you to check that out. But the Mega Grants program is a $100 million fund that we put together to support developers using and supporting the 3D game space, or the 3D development space. This is the term I should use. But really, it's available to folks like game developers, media and entertainment, enterprise, which encompasses all of the different verticals that I talked about today, and others that may yet be discovered. Education is a strong focus of the Mega Grants program, and tools and open source developers. Engines like Godot, programs like Blender have received Mega Grants. So I encourage you, if you're looking for funding to help with imaginative new projects in utilizing Unreal Engine or supporting the 3D development space through open source tools, that you go look at the Mega Grants program. You can check out the website, unrealengine.megagrants. It's very straightforward. If you're listening to this internationally and you have questions, you can reach out to your evangelist in your region. You can find those. I should have a link right here, but I just thought of it right now. But if you Google Unreal Indies, that's our Indies site for Unreal developers, has a link to all of our evangelists around the world that you can look at and reach out to them on social media and find out more about Mega Grants. You can read all about it at the website, handy QR code for those lazy folks there. But Mega Grants is an amazing program, and I highly encourage you to check it out. So with that, I have one last summary video, which kind of brings all this together, and hopefully it'll get you hyped about some of the creations that are coming by developers just like yourself. Folks in the indie game space, the AAA game space, all those different verticals that I talked about, whether it be automotive, product design, architecture, visualization, environments, all of these things come together to just make this a really exciting time in the space. I gave a talk a few weeks ago about the indie game revolution and how that is allowing folks to just really bring their dreams to life in the indie game space. And, I'm also excited to talk about just expanding the opportunities for people. They're excited about their craft and excited about creating awesome 3D assets, creating amazing user interfaces, creating content that can impact people's lives in a variety of different ways, outside of just bringing joy and love, to their life through video games, but making the world a safer and more educated place. So with that, I'll just play this last whiz bang amazeness.
Tell me, is this thing on now? I've been walking along like a marathon now. Tying up words, making them a bomb now. Tell me, who turned on the alarm now? I got a message when they put it in a song now. I'll see you later, all the haters got it wrong now. We're touching the lightning, we're coming alive, yeah. We're feeling inside, yeah. We got the power. Yeah. Come on. We got the power. Yeah. Turn it up. We got the power. Come on, is everybody with me? It's time to get together, no more enemies. Throw your hands up, can you feel the energy? Yeah. Come on, can you finally hear what this means? 20-something years been chasing down this street, running like a wild man, going since 15. Yeah. We're touching the lightning, we're coming alive, yeah. We're feeling inside, yeah. We got the power. Yeah. Come on. We got the power. Woo. Yeah. Get it turned up. We got the power. We're touching the lightning, we're coming alive, yeah. We're feeling inside, yeah. We're feeling inside, yeah. We're touching the lightning, we're coming alive, yeah. We got the power. We got the power. Yeah. Let's go now. We got the power. we got the power.
All right. So with that, again, this is my contact information. Christian Allen, I'm the evangelist, one of the evangelists for North America at Epic Games. You can reach out to me at Cerelan is my Twitter handle. And again, LinkedIn, Christian Allen-designer. Or just do a search for Christian Allen Epic Games and you'll find me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat with you about your video game projects. Happy to chat with you about these different verticals. I do a lot of connecting the dots with folks. So I'm always happy as part of my role as an evangelist to talk to you about opportunities in the 3D space. And obviously Unreal Engine in particular. So with that, I think I'm going to take a break and come back in a few minutes for Q&A. Is that correct, Corey?
Yes, we're going to roll a short video, take a quick 3-minute break, come back for Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. I hope that was interesting.
Yeah,
well, definitely was.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so I am available for Q&A. I'm not sure how you guys are running it this time around, but happy to jump into. You've got me for the next hour, or whatever works for you guys.
All right. I'll go ahead and read. Alex Garbus says, so I feel like a lot of schools focus on game-specific applications of real-time systems. Do you think that they should be moving towards teaching real-time systems applied to multiple industries, such as the ones you showcased today?
I think that's a great question, Alex. And I think schools, the challenge that schools have, obviously, is, as technologies get adopted and, brought into various different disciplines and programs, that tends to lag behind, real time. Obviously things get battle tested, which is a term I use a lot. They get adopted broadly, and then they kind of move into schools and taught. And I think I think we are seeing a transition. And I'm not an education. We have education evangelists that focus primarily on this kind of question. Again, I come from the game side, but I do spend a lot of time speaking to students. Specifically and developers club like the Unreal meetup group that you guys have in Huntington. I've had the opportunity to go there again. You should check that out if you haven't already. I look forward to coming again when I can travel. By default, if they are teaching Unreal Engine, they are teaching the technology across the scope. I mean, that was kind of the point of what I was getting to today, is that when you're learning to use sequencer in Unreal Engine to create cinematics, you are learning the same suite that you may be using in creating a traditional hand-drawn cartoon or creating an advertising suite or a real-time effect like you saw in those Weather Channel examples. All of those are the same suite of technology. And that is, I think, a huge change. And I think that'll catch up as people realize the depth and the breadth that these technologies are being adopted in various different industries. And again, accelerating. I think you'll see people start to recognize that. And the great thing for students, when you're talking to your friends and parents about how you are going to do training in video game animation, and everybody goes, oh, video games. You can say, well, and these things as well. I had another point, an example, but it flitted out of my head there. That's my ADD and too much coffee. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I think it did. I actually have something to add. In the private chat when we were streaming, Patrick had mentioned to me that Megan Click should be watching this. And I talked to her yesterday about some of my students taking her Python class because she uses Unreal Engine for GIS data visualization. So I think even Ted Triplett is using it in his 3D engineering classes. So that's 3 programs ungame related on top of mine that use it. So
yeah, and actually that reminds me, when you mentioned Python, that reminded me of the example that I was going to bring up, is that Python is a scripting language, much like Blueprint, and that's what I've traditionally done. I started out doing mission scripting in the Ghost Recon editor, which was called Igor back in the day, and then I worked in the Halo scripting tools and a little bit in LithTech, and so I've been able to transition my technical skill set as a scripter to support obviously my primary discipline of a game designer. But one of the examples of the power of scripting is I was talking with a developer, I guess you would call them a developer. They were creating a tool set for folks to be able to visualize stadium seating. So you'd be able to go in, hey, look at seat 10A out of 10,000 seats in the stadium and see the view that you're going to see when you actually buy your ticket. And the traditional way that they did that is that they built the stadium, I believe in like Max or Maya. They had the stadium with all 30,000 seats, hand placed, all the assets, traditionally created. And that, quote unquote, worked great. Except that if they made a change, like for example, if a sponsor, if Doritos had the big sign and it had the Doritos logo on it, when they needed to change that sponsor from Doritos to Mountain Dew, they would have to go back and re-render all of those individual scenes. So they had, say, 30,000 seats. Each seat had 3 shots that would render, and they would go through and manually re-render all of those 90,000 scenes, and then they would have to go through and verify, okay, now try to figure out which ones can see that logo that we're swapping out, or do we just go ahead and re-render all 90,000 of them and re-upload them? Well, with something like Python or Blueprint scripting, you can very easily go in and say, for example, create the seat as a Blueprint object with attached cameras, create very simple scripting to check line of sight to that sign or that logo or that sponsor application, check to see which ones can actually see that content, and then just go out and just render those scenes that you need to have. If you're even rendering it in the first place, whether you're doing it real time. So that kind of skill set, translates directly over from something that you may use in game development to something that you may use in a more quote unquote traditional industry.
All right. While we wait for more questions to come in, I actually had one myself. What do you think is the furthest on the front line of ways that Unreal Engine is being used outside of games?
I'd say that the probably furthest that I would have thought about it is in the creation of medications. There are, or just surgeries that, it's funny. I think someone mentioned in the chat when I was showing the simulation video, it's got the video of people in VR, taking someone's shoulder out and like looking at it in real time. And people start thinking of surgeon simulators and things like that. But there are actually similar applications for things like brain surgery, where people can use the applications to simulate, where a brain clot may be based on the symptoms that a patient is experiencing, and getting in and mapping the routes of the blood vessels in the brain and what that can mean. And so, and I don't really understand how it necessarily works on the medication creation standpoint, but people are using real-time visualization to help with that production pipeline when it comes to experimenting in the medical and molecular field. And to me, that's kind of crazy. 15 years ago in the games industry, when we as collectively as game developers were working on this technology, I don't think we ever would have thought or imagined that this could be used to create new medications that are going to, have a global personal impact on people's lives. And I think that's, for me, one of the things that's really appealing when I talk about this specific topic of different applications is, a lot of the things that drive people to be in game development and work through the stresses, they want to impact people's lives. And now that they can take that artistic passion they have, again, whether it be, creating 3D art or being a programmer and creating amazing code and really slick user interfaces and things like that, and apply that to these other industries, I think that's really cool and exciting.
That's definitely very, very interesting.
All right.
All right.
Well, I think if that's it for the questions, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you again for coming out and talking to us about all the different ways that Unreal Engine is being used outside of games, because I know we're always constantly pushing it, so it's good to feel validated.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Excellent. Well, I want to say thanks to the folks that organized this behind the scenes, help me with my AV issues. I'm a game designer, not a master AV presenter. And I want to, give a big shout out as well to, obviously all the Unreal Engine users in your guys' ecosystem. And I look forward to being back out in real time physical presentation in a room where we can ping and have more of an interactive experience. But I'm glad that we could do this today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah,
definitely. Maybe for coming out. Oh, not coming out, but coming on, not out.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Stay safe and have a great rest of the year.
Same to you.